Shalom, and welcome to Christians with Torah, the Beit Tehillah Community Podcast. We believe the Torah is relevant for our lives today, God's teachings and instructions. You may very well be part of the first generation to be born again, filled with the Holy Spirit, and have the Torah, a Christian with Torah. Join us as we honor the living God through the study of His Word, topical conversations, and interviews with special guests. Please welcome our hosts, Pastor Nick Plummer and Ryan Cabrera.
Shalom, everybody, and welcome to Christians with Torah, the Beit Tehillah Community Podcast. I'm your co-host, Ryan Cabrera, and I'm in Studio C. By the way, this is Studio C. We have a few studios. We're real fancy around here. And I'm sitting at the table today with a very special guest, Mr. Avi Lipkin. Hi.
Great to be with you. First time on this show.
Yeah, first time, absolutely. But
I lost count how many times I've been here at Beit Tehillah. So.
Well, yes, Avi has been a friend of Beit Tehillah for over 20 years. He's been coming around since the 90s, long before I came to Beit Tehillah, right? And it's a funny story, actually. We've seen you, my wife and I, on different shows over the years. You've been on, Gary Stearman's show, Derek Gilbert's show, all these different places. And so when we started finding our Hebrew roots, and then we did an internet search, and we came to Beit Tehillah, one day they announced in the announcements that Avi Lipkin, this celebrity, is coming to Beit Tehillah. And we're like, wait, they know Avi Lipkin? And so we were just, floored and astounded. Now I've met you, I don't know, at least a half dozen times. So I'm thankful to have you here. So I want to welcome you very sincerely. We appreciate you coming. He actually came out of his way to be with us today. And I want to hear about you so that we can introduce you to the audience, about where you're from, how you came to where you are now, which I know this is, we would need at least 3 hours. So give us the abridged version, and we'll kind of go from there.
Instead of the Pentecostal version, you want the Baptist version.
Whatever version you feel comfortable with.
About 20 minutes.
Yeah. three scriptures and a fish story.
Yeah. I have quite a few of those. Thank you for having me. I don't know where to start because, my teachings are about 27 hours of teaching between books, CDs, and DVDs.
Wow.
And this is not even scraping the tip of the iceberg in what we're doing. I think that the key subject right now that interests the whole world is what's happening in Afghanistan.
Right.
And I've said this many times before in different forums. I even got a jail sentence commuted to 10 years of probation, for saying that Allah is the devil. Allah is not God.
Right.
Because the myth, the lie, is that Allah and God are the same. Now, Allah means God.
Sure.
But Muhammad, when he was rejected by the Jews and the Christians, changed it to Allah Alilahi. Allah Alilahi is God, the moon god. Because the moon god was the greatest of 360 pagan gods in Arabia. You had the moon, the sun, and the stars. Those are the greatest gods.
Sure.
These are not the gods of the Jews and the Christians. These are not the gods of Israel.
No, clearly.
They're not the gods of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Not only that, in Deuteronomy 17, which is a holy book, a holy chapter for Christians and Jews, it says that anyone who prostrates to the moon, the sun, and the stars, take them to the gates of the city and stone them.
Yikes.
Which basically means that Islam is a capital offense.
Oh, wow.
Now, here in America, obviously, no one ever will accept that, even though it says so in the Bible. I consider Christian America as part of the gates of Israel. And in Israel, if I say something like this, and Israel is the land of the Bible.
Right.
If I say this, to stone anyone who prostrates to the moon, what do you mean? You're going to have to kill 2 million Israeli Muslims, 2 million Palestinian Muslims, that's 4 million, and basically ban Islam. So if I were to say that in Israel, I would probably be jailed for hate speech and or put in an insane asylum, because how can anyone say such a thing? But it says that in the Bible. And the gods of Islam were 360. Muhammad abolished 357. And he promised his followers a monotheistic religion. One God.
Gotcha.
And today, Islam is a one God religion, but it is the moon god. It's not. It was three gods: the moon, sun, and stars. And then after 12 years, Muhammad started his religion in 622, and 12 years later, 634, the early followers of Muhammad say, "Hey, you promised us a monotheistic religion, like the Jews and the Christians." So he abolished the sun and the stars. But still, if you look at the flags of the Islamic countries, if you look at their currencies and all their symbols, it's still the moon, the sun, and the stars. And they have a God who hates the Jews. Does our God hate the Jews? Our God loves the Jews.
No, our God is a Jew.
And our God is a Jew.
Yeah.
And they hate the Christians.
Yeah.
They want to kill the Jews on Saturday because the Jews are the Saturday people. They want to kill the Christians on Sunday because the Christians are the Sunday people. And they want to kill the Hindus and Buddhists because they're pagans.
Sure.
And then the Muslims go ahead and kill each other. So therefore, I came to the conclusion that if they do all of this in the name of Allah, Allah is a God, small g, with a depopulating ideology. In other words, forget about abortion,
Yeah.
or LGBT. Just become a Muslim. Everyone's killing everyone.
Right.
And this is what you see today in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
You have Sunnis killing Sunnis, Sunnis killing Shiites, Shiites killing Sunnis. This is not just about the Jews and the Christians, the Hindus and the Buddhists. I would say that this is going to come to you as a shock.
Yeah.
That I'm going to be very, very pleased if China takes over Afghanistan. Because you got 40 million crazy Afghans. I don't want to say all of them are crazy,
Yeah,
but what's
yeah.
going on there is craziness.
Right.
This Allah is crazy. It's a Satan. The Chinese don't take prisoners. And the Chinese have their own problem in Western China with 10 million Uyghurs. So if you got 40 million in Afghanistan, what's 40 million compared to 1.5 billion Chinese?
Yeah.
And you have to remember, the Muslims are fighting the Buddhists in Thailand. They're fighting the Buddhists in Myanmar. The Japanese don't even allow Islam on the Japanese islands. So I think that the Chinese have a good understanding of the threat facing them. Afghanistan contains minerals that the Chinese economy needs.
Was it lithium?
Everything.
Oh, okay.
And Afghanistan could play, theoretically, a very important role in the Silk Belt Road of China going into Russia and going to the West.
Interesting.
So I don't think 40 million Muslims in Afghanistan are an obstacle
Right.
to China's plans of domination and hegemony in Afghanistan. Everybody here in America sees China as the great enemy. But, I have to tell you, when I was in Moscow in 1994, I did a 1-hour radio show live on Radio Moscow.
Okay.
And the truth is, my Russian isn't that great. So I had to go to the radio station at 8 in the morning and prepare the questions and answers in writing.
Ah, gotcha.
In Russian. So they would ask the question. I would be reading as I know enough Russian to know that it was exactly faithful to my message. And I said to the Russian people, I said to them that Islam is a threat to all of humanity. And I said to them that Russia and Europe and the United States and Israel need to band together to deal with Islam. And my interviewer, his name was Oleg Gribkov, and he said to me, well, 1994, Russia is not a communist country officially anymore, but we're still all communists.
Yeah.
And, we communists believe in the solidarity of all the nations. And so we believe in solidarity with the Muslim nations. And I said to him, you know something, Oleg? I said, that's all nonsense. He said, why do you say it's all nonsense? I said, because you Russians have been fighting the Turks for 1,000 years. And it ain't over.
Right.
And he said to me, we have to tell you something. When the Nazi armies surrendered at Stalingrad, all the different units surrendered. There were Hungarians and Italians and Romanians, and there were Palestinians and Chechens. The only ones that would not surrender were the Palestinians and the Chechens, the Muslims.
Interesting.
And they had a final death charge. They ran with their bayonets drawn, and they had their daggers. They all had daggers in their mouth. and they charged at the Red Army machine gunners.
Ooh,
So that was over pretty quick.
I would say so.
They would not surrender. And so Oleg Rybkov said to me, every Russian schoolchild knows the history of the Battle of Stalingrad and this last charge of the Muslims. They know the Russians know that Islam is a very fierce opponent. And the Russians lost in Afghanistan. The Americans lost in Afghanistan. The British, 150 years ago, if you remember Kipling, Rudyard Kipling, they lost. I don't think the Chinese are going to lose. I think the Chinese are just going to steamroller any Islamic insanity which tries to go against China.
Yeah.
And I think the Chinese will make order there. They might even settle 10, 20, 30 million Chinese there.
Sure. So I have a question. I mean, I've heard you speak on this subject before, and I want you to expound on it as you continue. But there's Muslims all over the world, right? I mean, there's
Right.
how many? 2 billion or 1.5 billion Muslims, right?
1.5 billion.
And so they say, right, especially in the media, that it's a small percentage of Muslims that are radical or extremist, right? And they'll give light to other things like, hey, in these countries, the average age is anywhere between 16 and 29. 70% of them are males. They have no job prospects. They have no hope for a future. They're have a second grade education at best, and they're very tribal. And so what that does is it breeds a tribal or a gang mentality, and that's what we're seeing. And it's just fueled by some sort of a religious zealousness.
Right.
What do you say to that when people try to push it off onto other things rather than focusing on the core message of Islam?
Well, you're 100% correct. I will add also, my wife Rachel, like myself, is a Jewish person. It's just I was born and raised in Christian America.
Sure.
And so my frame of mind is Christian. Rachel was born and raised in Islamic Egypt. And so her frame of thinking is Islamic. She understands these people. She understands how they operate. Rachel worked for 30 years as an intelligence gatherer for the Israeli government through the radio TV services.
Sure.
And she picked up a broadcast where this was like at the beginning of her work 35 years ago. And the Saudis were saying, even if it takes us 150 years, we will make America a Muslim country.
Wow.
Now, America is the great Christian Satan
Right.
in the eyes of Islam.
I've heard that.
So there's one of two ways to deal with it. Either you destroy America, which is the 9/11 mentality of terrorism, or the quiet ideology of hijrah. Hijrah in Arabic means emigration of Muslims from all over the world, where indeed they have no work prospects.
Right.
And they come to America. So 150 years to make America Muslim. Now, when my wife retired 5 years ago, she picked up a broadcast from the same station, and they were saying, we said it was going to take 150 years to make America Muslim. Well, we were wrong.
Yeah.
It's only going to take us another 30 years.
Wow.
Because the Americans are so naive and so bribed.
Right.
The gatekeepers are bribed,
Right.
Including Republicans. Republicans and Democrats are the same thing.
Right.
And so what happened was I, traveling around the United States, would also pick up information on my own, but it would match what my wife was picking up. And so one of the key things that is in my second book, Christian Revival for Israel's Survival, is take, for example, University of North Carolina, Duke University. And one day the leadership of the university gets a cablegram. This is like 40 years ago. And cablegram that the Sheikh of Brunei is coming, very wealthy man.
Wow.
And he's bringing a $23 million check. They say, we're bringing you a gift, $23 million, no strings attached. And so the Sheikh of Brunei comes, they make a big party for him. I mean, $23 million is a lot of money.
Especially 40 years ago.
40 years ago. And the Sheikh of Brunei says, we know about your university. I mean, it's not Ivy League, but it's pretty good.
It's Catholic.
And they said, we appreciate you guys. We want to help you guys. So we have noticed that Duke University does not have an Arabic language chair or an Islamic studies chair. And we want to help you to establish them, and we'll give you another $23 million.
Oh, wow.
This is all in my second book, Christian Revival for Israel's Survival. Then they say, okay, that's $46 million. Then they say, we are also going to give you the professors to teach Islam. Who are they? Missionaries.
Sure.
For Islam.
Yeah.
And we will give you the materials to study, which is missionary materials. And then we're going to send you students to help your students to tutor them about
Wow.
Islam.
Yeah, wow.
We will send you 500 young male Muslim students a year. So that basically, by the end of 4 years, you have 500 freshmen, juniors, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, 2,000 hot-blooded young males, which will pay full room, board, and tuition. Now, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the university receives $100 million from this,
Yeah.
which, for the university is a lot of money. But is $100 million a lot for the Islamic world?
Probably not.
With all the oil?
Not from Brunei or from
Right.
Saudi Arabia or Dubai or any of those places.
So, boys will be boys, and Muslim boys can marry Christian girls. They can marry Jewish girls. They can marry any girls, but not vice versa. You cannot go out on a date with a Muslim woman because they will kill her and they will kill you.
Wow, yeah.
So the men come to America with a budget to wine and dine and woo these American girls.
Yeah.
They sweep the American girls off their feet like Rudolph Valentino. And American women are not used to this romantic image of a man who pursues them. Here in America, the man, let's go to McDonald's, have a hamburger. No, these guys come with money. They buy jewelry for the women.
Oh, wow.
They treat them very well. Never touch them until they get married. Then they can do anything they want with them. But the point is that they marry these American women. After what happens after 2 years? These men get passports.
Gotcha.
They come here with the express purpose of getting passports and having Muslim children, because the American women become Muslim baby-producing factories. Then, once they have American passports, they can bring in their parents and siblings and cousins and aunts and uncles. Chain immigration.
Yeah.
This is what President Trump was talking about.
Yeah.
So after 4 years, Duke University area becomes heavily populated by Muslims because of this student visa thing. From what I have seen, and I've been to some very, very distant places in Canada and in the United States where nobody even goes, nobody knows these. I'm like a private investigator. I'm like Maxwell Smart, Agent 86, constantly picking up information.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go, the people come to me, say, save our daughters, because we have all these Muslim men now in the universities. How did they get in? Each university gets $100 million.
Yeah.
Multiply that times 1,000, and so you got about $100 billion or whatever. I don't know. I'm just giving you ballpark figures. This money means nothing.
Lots of money.
It means nothing to Islam because they put Allah in the center of the box.
Yeah.
Christians and Jews put God outside the box, like, okay, we'll go to church or we'll go to synagogue. No, Islam, like you said, is very tribal, very controlling. If you go against it, they will kill you. Your family has to kill you. So I have taken the liberty of saying that there are 30 million Muslims in America today. There are no statistics. There's this lie that there are 2 or 3 million Muslims.
I was going to say, I looked it up, and that doesn't say 30 million for sure.
Well, I say 30 million for sure, and I'll explain why. First, you have 4 million black Muslims from the Nation of Islam, Louis Farrakhan.
Which are not counted in that number, probably.
Well, I don't know. 4 million Muslims.
Yeah.
Then, do you remember the Shah of Iran? When he fell from power, you had the same situation with Iran that you have today with Afghanistan.
Gotcha.
If you were an ally of the United States and you did not leave Iran, you got beheaded.
Right. That was the 70s or early 80s?
79.
Yeah.
So President Reagan, he did the right thing.
Yeah.
These people were not fanatic Muslims. They're good Muslims. They're good people. And I say they're good Muslims.
Yeah.
Just like there are good Germans. But are the Nazis good people?
No.
Nazis, no. Germans, yes.
Right.
And so, from my understanding, 9 million Shiites from Iran were brought. It's only less than 10% of the population. But they were the ones who were allied. The military of Iran, the oil people, if they didn't leave, they were going to be beheaded. Many were beheaded.
Yeah.
That's why the others came. So 9 million Shiites and 4 million black Muslims is 13 million.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that you have millions and millions and millions of Sunnis who came in from many countries in the Middle East. I heard the amount from the Sunni Muslim organization in America of 7 million. That was about 20 years ago.
Huh.
So it was over 20 million then.
Yeah.
Now you have the Somalis. You have a Somali woman making trouble in Congress.
Ilhan Omar, yeah.
You've got Muslims from the Turkish republics and those that broke away from Russia.
Yeah.
You have the Chechens, who are Russian Muslims. If you remember the Boston Marathon bombing.
Mm-hmm.
And
is that the Tsarnaev brothers? Is that who that was?
Tsarnaev, yes.
Tsarnaev, okay.
And actually, the Russian government warned the United States, check these guys out, they're terrorists.
Huh.
But there's some kind of a mental block in Washington that prevents the authorities in America from checking the people out.
Yeah, it's the whole anti-racial profiling ideology.
Exactly. So I have to tell you a little story.
Sure.
There was a triple murder in Boston, or Boston.
Boston.
And it was 3 Jewish college boys. And the police found their bodies covered with cocaine. And so the police said, well, okay, it's drug-related. But the wallets were not taken. The money was not taken.
Huh.
And so when the police, came to a dead end, because it was a dead end, they basically closed the file. 3 dead Jewish kids in college. Then came the Boston Marathon bombing. And at that time, the FBI arrested all of the Chechens in Boston. It was like 100 of them.
Okay.
And in the investigation, it turned out that the Tsarnaev brothers slit the throats of the 3 Jewish boys and had nothing to do with drugs. The drugs was just to cover up the trail.
Yeah.
It was because those 3 boys were Jewish.
That's so sad.
And I have many stories like that. There's a story, for example, in Houston of a Jewish boy who was beheaded. You can look it up on the internet.
Yeah.
Jewish boy beheaded in Houston by Saudi prince. They were best friends. I mean, they were really bosom buddies. They were together all the time. And one day they found the Jewish boy's head chopped off. And the Saudi made some inexplicable escape back to Saudi Arabia.
Huh.
Like 9/11.
Yeah, because he's a prince. Right?
Well, yeah, and the Saudis,
Diplomatic immunity or something.
9/11, there were the only planes flying out of the U.S. were Saudi planes because they were in bed with President Bush, George W. Bush. Listen, this thing is yada yada. It goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, 9/11, we're coming now to the 20th anniversary of 9/11.
That's right.
I will never forget the betrayal of President George W. Bush, who said, Allah is God, Islam is the religion of peace, and go back to sleep. So the American people went back to sleep again. The churches were packed after 9/11.
Yeah.
And then after 3-4 weeks, it went back to, the lower amounts. So if your president tells you go back to sleep, ignore it.
Yeah.
Now you're going to have something many times worse than 9/11.
Sure.
With the pullout, with the surrender in Pakistan, in Afghanistan. Well, Pakistan actually was behind everything the Taliban did. They could not have done it without Pakistan.
That's what I heard. I heard they go over the border, and that's where they've been staging,
Yeah.
right? Because the U.S. is not going into Pakistan, at least not on regular, patrols or missions or anything like that.
So America has one of 2 decisions. Either America fights them in Afghanistan, returns the troops, or America surrenders, and you're going to fight them here on American soil. And like I said before, the Chinese understand this. Chinese don't take prisoners.
Yeah.
Chinese do the right thing.
So let me ask you this. So you mentioned the politicians that happen to be Muslims, like Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. And one of the curious things to me is the fact that they align themselves with the Democrat Party,
Right.
instead of having their own independent party or something like that. And it just seems like strange bedfellows to me. Why would a super right-wing conservative organization like Islam, right? And I say that from a worldview standpoint, what they believe and how they live their lifestyle and all that, align themselves with a party that seems to be diabolically opposed to everything they believe in.
And diabolically opposed to Christianity, diabolically opposed to Israel,
Right.
diabolically opposed to all the values that made America great.
So it's an enemy of my enemy is my friend.
They want to take advantage of the people who, I don't want to say it, I would not say it myself, but there are those people on the right who say that the Democrats are traitors.
Huh.
And so the birds of a feather flock together. I saw the Democratic Party convention, and I heard the boos when the moderator said, well, we got to include God in our platform, and everyone was booing.
Yeah.
And then he said, well, we're going to do it anyway because we have to have God in the platform. So they had to swallow frogs. Then we have to, put Israel in the campaign. No, boo, 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 boo.
Yeah.
And they did that too. But I heard the boos, and I heard the hatred,
Yeah.
the vitriol
Sure.
against Christians. I want to tell you something else also. And I'm going to answer something that you didn't even ask. Like, why did the Jews vote?
Yeah, that's another good question.
And the Jews actually are allies with the Muslims. Now, there is this myth that goes back to 1492, that the Muslims and the Jews were allies, and they were kicked out by the Catholics in Spain in 1492. And, it sounds strange coming from the Jew, Avi Lipkin, but from the Catholic perspective, the Catholics were 100% correct to kick out the Jews and the Muslims. You know why?
Why?
Because Spain had been invaded 3 times by Muslim armies. Once by an Arab army in 711,
Right.
and then afterwards by 2 different Moroccan armies that came in.
And they called them the Moors back then. So I think a lot of people in history, when they're reading their history book, they're reading it saying the Moors, meaning Muslims, right?
Moroccans,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
And one of the crazy things, I've been down to the Mexican border, in Brownsville and McAllen. So I go over to, Matamoros. I speak Spanish. It's my mother tongue. And I say to my Mexican friends when I go over, I say, do you know what Matamoros means? No. It means kill the Moors. Matamoros.
Oh, there you go, yeah.
Kill the Moors. Because this is a continuation of the Reconquista, the reconquest of Spain.
Yeah.
And the Spanish fought for 760 years to get rid of the Muslims. One of the things I always stress, I studied in college Russian and Sovietology, and I studied Spanish and Latin American studies.
Huh.
What do the two have in common? 1,000 years of war with the Muslims.
Interesting. Okay.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Now, in 1492, who controlled Morocco and North Africa?
The Muslims, the Moors.
What nation?
Oh, the Spanish.
No, the Turks.
Oh, okay. So
I'm
which
talking
empire?
about North Africa.
Would this be the Ottomans or?
The Ottomans. Yeah. And their fleets were right off the coast of Spain.
Right, well, because it's right there.
And Ferdinand and Isabella knew that the Turkish Navy was there, ready to invade Spain a 4th time. In other words, a 4th Muslim invasion of Spain.
Interesting.
Because this is a seesaw battle.
Yeah.
It's like the Crusades, goes up and down. And up
Well, and
and
like an administration change, and then they get weaker or stronger, and vice versa.
So the Moors in 1492 were on the verge of invading Spain, and the Catholic king and queen said, these Jews and Muslims are leaving the back door open for the Muslims to come in through Granada.
Okay.
We can't tolerate that. So the Jews, with all the pain, we Jews, I say it, we Jews, were kicked out. My wife, Rachel, who was born and raised in Egypt, her family came from Spain, and they went to Morocco and Turkey. The Turks took them in. And the Turks arrived at the greatest peak of their power when the Jews and the Muslims were kicked out and joined the Ottoman Empire.
Gotcha.
The Jews were very active in the Ottoman Empire. And actually now I'm writing my 8th book.
Wow, 8th book.
Yeah, my 8th book is about, it's called Lepanto II, and the Turkish Armageddon. And what I'm saying, I said 1492 was the expulsion of the Jews and the Muslims. 1571, there was a massive sea battle. Now, you remember 1588? That was the Spanish Armada was destroyed by the Protestant navies, England and Holland.
Right.
Well, everybody in America knows about that because the Catholics were whipped by the Protestants. But 17 years before, 1571, the Catholic fleets of Spain and Venice wiped out the Turkish fleet. This was the beginning of the end of the Ottoman Empire, 1571. 1683, the Catholics came down from Poland, King Jan Sobieski. By the way, I was on the Jan Sobieski train from Vienna to Warsaw. I took that train. He defeated the Turks in 1683 at the gates of Vienna, and that began the ground offensive of the Christians pushing the Turks down towards the Bosporus. So what I'm saying now is that I think the Turks are going to, this is not the subject today.
Sure.
Today we're talking about Afghanistan, Iran. The Turks are there. The Turks are getting ready for a major sea battle around the island of Cyprus to cut off the gas pipeline from Israel to Italy. The gas pipeline will go from Israel to Cyprus to Greece to Italy. And the Turks are saying, we're going to be major partners in this, otherwise we're going to destroy it. We won't let the Greeks have it. And we're going to kill all the Greeks in Cyprus. I mean, crazy stuff.
And
so
this is present day Erdogan.
This is right now.
Yeah, this is Erdogan, right?
Erdogan, yeah, he's nuts. Okay. And so I have heard, I can't say exactly what's happening, but that the Israeli commandos are now in Cyprus training with the Cypriot Christians, Greeks, and preparing for this war. And the Israeli Navy is capable of sinking the entire Turkish fleet in one day. But what the problem is, we will win the battle, but then there will be an Armageddon war because Sunni Muslims from all over the world, including Afghanistan and Pakistan and the republics that broke away from the Soviet Union, 200 million of them, and Indonesia and Malaysia and India, you're talking about hundreds of millions of volunteers that are going to go to Turkey, Sunnis.
Sure.
And then to invade Israel from the north. They will take Syria, Lebanon. Do you know how many Christians are going to be beheaded?
Ugh.
I mean, this is crazy. The Christians, the Jews, and the Israelis are going to have to defend everyone because America is going into Finky land, with this president.
Yeah. I've heard the from just accounts in Afghanistan, things that I've read, articles that they have a list of the Christians and the people that have helped.
They check the phones,
right?
All the attachments.
Yeah, and that they are seeking them out even right now.
Yeah.
To kill them. The Taliban is in Afghanistan. So there's a ton of history between. It sounds like, at least, the Islam and fighting all of those different nations in that area. Solomon says there's nothing new under the sun, right? I mean, this is...
The things are always the same, but worse. And one of the things that I'm saying also is that ISIS... I love President Trump. I've said it a million times.
Yeah.
But President Trump is wrong when he says that ISIS is gone.
Right. Well, ISIS, what is it, an ideology? It's a caliphate.
ISIS is Orthodox Islam.
Interesting.
92% of Saudi Arabia is ISIS. 92%.
So I mean, you have the 9/11, attack.
It'll happen again.
It's mostly Saudis,
yeah.
Right? And I've heard a couple different things.
Rich Saudis, good, well-to-do boys, not poor, impoverished people.
Right.
People with ideological motive.
And they say that, and this is what I've heard, that there's a Wahhabist or some sort of an ideology that is exported from Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know much more than just to say that. I don't even know what Wahhabism is or what that means.
Insanity. Allah is Satan.
Yeah.
And America is Christian.
Yeah. And
the Muslims want to defeat Christian America.
Wow. That's incredible. So in regards to Afghanistan, why would the Taliban, right? So I guess Trump had made a deal with the devil, in this aspect, with the Taliban being a terrorist organization, that they would hold off while the U.S. did their process of moving out. But it sounds like that everyone, including Trump, knew the Taliban was eventually going to be taking back over.
Right.
And so, what do you help me understand the pieces of the puzzle here, and why that would even be acceptable in any way, shape, or form, and what has prevented the strongest army in the world, and it sounds like many armies throughout history, from being able to stamp out the ideology of that radical Islamic terrorism?
The greatest powers. England was the greatest power. They lost.
Right.
Russia and America, the greatest powers. They lost. And to the Chinese.
Yeah.
The
So you
Chinese-
think the Chinese are going to invade?
Absolutely.
Well, and so tell me, what in current events could somebody go and look to get some corroboration for that?
Have you seen how the Chinese are taking over Africa?
But normally that's through debt, right?
Well, first investment.
Right. Well, investment.
And then when the local nations are not able to pay, the Chinese come in and take over.
Right.
It's not just Africa, it's Latin America also.
It's all over the place. I've seen some of that stuff, and it's not good.
Venezuela is the richest country on earth, but because of the failed system of communism, socialism, Chavez and Maduro, they lost it.
Yeah.
So who came in? The Shiites and the Chinese and the Russians.
So are the Shiites and the Chinese in it together?
Yeah, because they're against the Sunnis.
Right. Okay.
The
So
Sunnis are the enemies of everybody.
Yeah.
The ironic thing is that Israel just signed peace agreements with 4 Sunni countries.
Right. Well, and here I thought all this time that the Shiites were the radical terrorists, right? At least that's what you've always heard. Oh, there's the Shiites because they even hate the Sunnis.
The Shiites are 15%, the Sunnis 85%. So who's going to win?
Well, probably the Sunnis.
The Sunnis.
Yeah.
Turkey is what? Sunni.
Right.
Now, and this is an interesting thing about Turkey is that 31% of Turkey is actually Shiite Alawite, and they are discriminated against. They are suppressed in Turkey. 31%. 25% of Turkey is Kurdish.
Well, I mean, 25% of all those nations is Kurdish, right?
And so actually Turkish Sunni Turkey
Yeah.
is only 44%.
See, that's one of the things that I think that doesn't get enough coverage. Everybody's focused on Israel because they hate Jews.
Yeah.
And the plight, quote unquote, of the Palestinians.
They have it better than the Muslims in any other country.
Which are Arabs, right?
Yeah.
They're Jordanians, they're Egyptians. We know what the reality is on that. But there's 40 million Kurds with no land?
Could be, yeah.
I mean, that's just the number that I've heard.
Iran, Iraq, Syria, even southern Russia has Kurds.
Right.
And Turkey, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of so.
And the Kurds are good friends of Israel.
Well, I think the Kurds seem to have been helpful in Syria as well.
Right.
And again, that's I think one of the things where America, not really focused on its principles and being strong in its principles, has made alliances loosely or otherwise with otherwise terrorist organizations that just happen to hate the other group that they're trying to topple over or whatever.
No, but the Kurds genuinely have been friends with the Jews.
No, the Kurds being the exception to that.
Right.
I'm talking about people that hate the Kurds. So we're over here helping the Kurds and arming the Kurds. But then in the South, we're over here arming the terrorist organization that they're both fighting against this group. But then as soon as that's over, this group's going to attack this group. And
Right.
it's like a weird chess game.
I have to tell you a crazy story. We have in Israel, we have in our army an ethnic group known as the Druze.
Okay.
Druze. The Druze are descended from Jethro.
Okay, Yitro. That's Jethro. Okay.
So they know that they are cousins of ours.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're cousins with the children of Ishmael.
Well, right.
Because Jethro is descended from Midian.
Right, Midian, right.
Midian was one of the sons of Abraham.
Right.
So
Right,
you have
from
Midian,
Keturah.
and you have Ishmael, and you have Isaac. So we're all cousins.
Sure.
And so the sons of Ishmael hate the Jews, and actually they hate the children of Jethro, because the children of Jethro believe that Jethro is the greatest of all the prophets. Now, if you are in a Muslim country...
Even to this day?
Of course.
Okay, all right.
And they're very militant, that Jethro is the greatest of all the prophets. And you look at the Torah, and there is never any mention at all of any bad mention of Jethro. Jethro is like the big hero for God.
Sure.
So Jethro, you know where Jethro is buried?
In Midian?
No, he's buried in Israel.
Is he really?
What happened was, okay, now, I don't know how much time we have left, but
We got some time. We got
okay,
a couple
so
minutes.
the story is that Moses, takes the children of Israel into Saudi Arabia. Do you know where Midian is?
So I think so, right? On a map, it's what, southeast of Israel?
Well, southeast of Israel. Midian is Medina.
Okay, so Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have two holy cities, Mecca and Medina.
Huh.
Now, one of the names of Medina in Arabic is Yathrib. Yathrib is Jethro.
Huh.
So Jethro lived in Medina, and they would go on pilgrimage around the Black Stone.
Right.
There was no Mecca. Mecca is a city that came later. And so Moses marries the daughter of Jethro,
Right.
who's his cousin.
Right. Zipporah.
Yeah, you only go back 5 generations to Isaac and Midian. And if you remember the story about Pinchas
Yep.
is Phineas,
Yep.
where he skewers.
Yes, the Midianitish woman. Yep.
Okay, her name is Cosbi,
Right.
Cosbi Batsur. What does Sur mean in Hebrew? The stone, the black stone.
She's the daughter of the stone.
Yeah.
Huh.
Her father is called Sur. He was the chieftain of the black stone in Mecca. This is according to my yellow book, to
Okay.
my
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
So after he killed her, all of a sudden the Arab tribes are saying these Jews are making trouble, these children of Moses.
Yeah.
So at the end of the book of Numbers, you have this big battle.
All right.
And 5 Midianite chieftains are killed, and they lose.
Right.
Well, now what's the problem? That behind them there are many more.
Wow. Yeah.
So in Deuteronomy 2, verse 2, God says to the Israelites, enough being encamped on this mountain, Mount Sinai,
Yeah.
which is really in northwest Saudi.
Right.
Head north. Torah is a GPS. Head north to the land of the Amorites, to the land that I have promised your forefathers. So the 38 years are in Saudi, and then the last 2 years are in Jordan and Iraq.
Right.
And so the Israelites head north, and then they cross over the Jordan. Now, Moses in the Torah twice says to Jethro, come with us. The first time he says, no, I have a day job.
Yeah.
The black stone. And one of the things I say is that when Moses goes to live with Jethro 40 years, he's going to the black stone. Then when Moses is 80, God says, go to Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go so that they may go around circling in the desert.
Yeah.
Because the word is celebrate, really, Hag in Hebrew is a holiday, but
Right.
in Arabic it's Hajj or Hajj, because the Egyptian, they say Hag,
Right.
and the Saudis say Hag. But all of this means to go around in circles around the black stone.
Right. Which is information that's in this book.
Right.
So I've read the yellow book.
And then we have
By
these
the way.
phylacteries, the cubic phylacteries, which I say are remnants of the black stone. Anyway, sorry. So these Arabian tribes said, we're going to kill this Jethro because his son-in-law is such a troublemaker. So Jethro and his family, according to Josephus, are allotted an inheritance in the land of Israel in the lower Galilee, and then he's buried right outside of Tiberias.
Wow. That's
And so the Druze who live in Israel go on pilgrimage to the tomb of the Nebi Shuaib. Nebi Shuaib is another name for Jethro.
Sure.
Okay, why am I telling you all this?
Yeah.
So we have a special relationship with the Druze. Now, there are Druze in Israel. They are faithful and they're great people, and they serve in the army. But you've got Druze who serve in Jordan, Jordanian army, Syrian army, and Lebanese army. They have a loyalty to the territory in which they live. So, the Jews are not enemies. They're just, loyal. They fight for their country.
Sure.
Now, ISIS, and as you know, south of Syria, ISIS,
Yep.
and they surrounded a mountain called the Mountain of the Druze. And there were 700,000 Druze there. And they're all going to be killed by ISIS. So the top commanders of the Druze in the Israeli army came to Netanyahu and said, either Israel invades the south of Syria, which we did not want to do,
Right.
because Mountain of Jews is like 20, 30 miles away, or let us go as volunteers, and we will help to defeat ISIS. A few weeks later, the Russians come in.
Right.
So the Russians basically saved Israel from having to go in with its Druze volunteers.
Yeah. Not to complicate matters from a geopolitical perspective.
The
anymore.
Russians here are absolutely the good guys
Yeah.
to defeat the Sunnis.
Right. Right, because they're they're allied with the Shiites, right? With
the
Iran
Shiites. And the composition of the alliance in Damascus with Bashar al-Assad is Shiite Muslims, Sunni Muslims who were always part of the infrastructure and the Ba'ath party,
Yep.
the Druze, the Christians, the Kurds, and the Yazidis. So it was the perfect storm because it was 50% of the population totally Sunni, and 50% of the loyalists of Bashar al-Assad, who were, there were Sunnis also, but also including Christians and Shiites and the others.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's probably a good segue to move to one last topic because we only have a few minutes left.
Right.
And that is, you live in Israel.
Right.
Right. And you're here visiting us in the States. Came 6,000 miles away just to see me.
Right.
Which I appreciate that very much.
Yes, thank you.
And you're an author, right? You mentioned you have 7 books that you've written so far.
Correct.
But you have DVDs and teachings.
Right.
And you have.
I used to work very much with Chuck Missler.
Oh, right.
When he was alive.
Chuck Missler, man.
And so most of my DVDs and CDs are Chuck Missler produced. Now I've produced my own because Chuck's not around anymore, unfortunately.
What a guy.
I love him. I love his memory. I miss him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, what a great guy. But I want to talk very quickly about the Bible Block Party.
Yes.
There's, our heart here at Beit Tehillah and with Christians with Torah, our audience, they know we're big on how can Christians and Jews work together. It sounds like you have outlined so far that there is an ideology out there that is a common enemy for us, and that it's sweeping the world in one form or another. And there's any number of them, right? I mean, it's leftism, it's atheism, it's Islam, it's all of these ideologies that are anti-God of Israel, anti-God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so those of us that have the common ground of believing in the Torah, believing in the Bible, believing in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, where is the safe haven, and how can we help ensure that safe haven, exists and into posterity?
Okay. That we had a terrible Holocaust in World War II.
Yes.
And one of the contentions of the Jewish people and the Jewish leadership is that nobody came to the rescue.
Right.
The Christians were not there. There were Christians. There were good Christians who individually saved Jews.
But not enough.
Not enough. The King of Denmark was a great hero, saved all the Jews of Denmark. The King of Bulgaria saved the Jews of Bulgaria, but not the Jews who fled to Bulgaria, who were not Bulgarians. So he gets a B, let's say.
Okay.
King of Denmark
We'll give him a
gets an A.
C, yeah.
But most of the other nations really did not help. Now, it says in the Bible, Genesis 12:3, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you.
Yes.
So on the one hand, we say, well, these people didn't bless us, so they're not going to be blessed. Okay. Now we have an Islamic ideology says, we are going to finish the work that Hitler started and wipe out the Jews. And the difference is that today, 70 years later, you've got a group called the evangelical Christians who love the Jews, at least some of the evangelical Christians. And yet in Israel, we have this tribal mentality of hating the Christians because of the persecutions of 2,000 years.
Sure. At least within the ultra-Orthodox community, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a saying in America, you may be right, but you may be dead right. The Jews cannot afford to be right, but dead right.
Yeah, I gotcha.
In other words, we need to have allies. We need to have Christians who love us and are ready even to give their lives for us. But if we reject those Christians and we hate those Christians, then there's something wrong. Now, what I've been saying for the last 30 years is that we have Christians living in Israel. We have 2% of our population which is not enough to gain representation in the Knesset by law.
Yeah.
And these are Arab Christians who've been living in the land since the time of Christ. Okay, 2%.
Yeah.
But then in 88 to 90, 91, and since then even, many Russian-speaking Jews came from Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, other former republics of the Soviet Union. I would say about 2 million Russian speakers moved to Israel. Of the 2 million Russian speakers, about 400,000 are not Jewish because the father is a Jew and the mother is a Christian. So according to the rabbinate, it's the religion of the mother.
Oh, okay.
Also, there are about 70,000 Russian Orthodox Christians living in Israel. The Russian Orthodox churches are packed, whereas during the Communist Cold War, they were shut down.
Right.
Now, we have also Messianics, or a very small group, 10,000. We have the Ethiopians coming in, and there are those, I don't have a number, who are Messianic. They're
Gotcha.
believers. They're Jewish by blood, but they're Messianic. I would say that we can count eventually on the votes of 500,000 voters out of 9 million. Half a million Christian believers or people whose father is Jewish, mother is Christian, therefore the rabbinate excludes them. They have no representation today. My party will give them representation.
Right.
I think we can get 6, 7, 8 members of Knesset. My book now is being translated into Hebrew, and God willing, I'll take it one more step into Russian.
Okay.
Because when the books come out in Hebrew and Russian, all the people who do not know about us today will know about us. And this will increase our voting potential. We need 140,000 votes out of the 500,000 to get the first 4 deputies into the Knesset. Now, this is a very tough battle because this is you have A to Z. So we're at A now.
Roger
we're at the
that.
very first step. I know we don't have time for another podcast, but there is a brewing Holocaust here in America where Muslims, Nazis, Antifa, and Black Lives Matter have all one thing in common. There's going to be civil war, and they're going to kill the Jews. And yet the Jews don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
So after enough Jewish blood is spilled, you're going to see many of these Jews and Christian spouses, intermarriage is 80%, moving to Israel. We have a potential immigration to Israel of 6 million Jews and 4 million Christians.
Wow, that would more than double the population.
Yes, and it would make my party the biggest party in the Knesset.
There you go.
Which means if my wife doesn't kill me by then, I'm prime minister. So that's the Bible Block Party. So if you want to know more, people should just get my book in English. I wrote it in 2006. I'm going to rewrite it now that the party has been registered.
Sure.
We've run in 4 elections. We're getting ready now for the 5th election. And I'm 72. I'm a dyslexic 72. I'm really 27. And I'm looking forward to serving God every day of my life for the rest of my life. And when God wants to take me, he'll take me. But until then, I'm marching.
Yeah. So how can people find your books to purchase, especially the Bible Block Party book? And how can they find you on the internet or communicate with you or donate to your cause? All of those things.
Well, I'm very stymied. Amazon has taken off my books. PayPal does not work with me anymore. I think you can agree with me that the high-tech people have their ways of shutting you down.
Sure they do.
So there are congregations like Beit Tehillah, which have my books.
Yep.
Those people here in Florida want to get them can just come here and get them.
Well, that, and you can email me, Ryan@twopraise.net, if you want to order a book, and we'll get it paid for and do all that, and we'd ship it to them.
Very good.
Yeah.
I do have my own internet. In other words, my own email. People can write to me. But I'm in Israel, so it's much harder to ship the books out.
Sure.
vicmord2001@yahoo.com. And there are other Christian ministries which very actively promote my books, like Prophecy Watchers and Southwest Radio Church. Look them up, and you'll find them. They sell my books.
Sure.
And, I don't get depressed when I'm blackballed by Amazon or blackballed by PayPal. And, there's a saying, he who laughs last laughs best. And God is the victor.
Right.
And so if we're marching with God and if he wants this to happen, my party will get into the Knesset.
Yeah, praise God. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I'm, what a dream. I told you, you were a celebrity to me, you know what I mean? And now here we are, and we got you on the show, and that's great. If you guys have any questions, what was that email address? It was Vic Moore, V-I-C?
V-I-C, like Victor,
Yep.
and Mordecai, M-O-R-D.
Okay, Victor Mord.
No, not Victor Mord, Vic Mord.
Okay, Vic Mord.
2001 at yahoo.com.
All right, Vic Mord 2001 at yahoo.com. So that's your email address.
Right.
What was the website that they could go to?
AviLipkin.net.
AviLipkin.net. Got
Yes,
it.
and usually I answer emails pretty quickly. I'm now on my drive from Florida back to Texas, and then next week I fly from Texas back to Florida, and then catch my flight from Miami to Israel with El Al.
Got it. Okay, well, praise God. Well, thank you guys. I've given you the information on how you can contact him. If you guys need anything from me, it's Ryan at twopraise.net. Bless you. Have a great week.